Did a good job moderating the Q&A that followed up. Okay, also allowing me an opportunity to experience the city. And I want to shout out all the brothers and sisters who came there from around the African continent. Okay, Sister Sarah from Somalia, my brother from Tanzania, my brother from South Sudan, sister from Chad, the queen from Lesotho, the brothers and sisters from everywhere. Cote d'Ivoire was there, Congo was there, 40 African countries was represented. So that was very, very powerful. I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. So I'm back in Johannesburg, South Africa. Shout out to the Xhosa family, the Swazi family, the Zulu family, and all the different African nations. And we have to stop using the word tribe, because tribe is a racist word invented by white folks to give a savage connotation to the cultural realities and lifestyles of African people. You don't hear white people say the Italian tribe. They don't say the Jewish tribe. They don't say the Anglo-Saxon tribe. Okay, they don't say the Portuguese tribe. Okay, so we need to start saying people, nation, culture, or community. So it's not the Zulu tribe, it's the Zulu nation, or the Zulu people, or the Zulu culture, or the Zulu community. So we have to start doing that. So today I'm gonna be speaking up in Bloemfontein. I'll be at a venue called London. I don't know if that's a restaurant or not. I wasn't given much information about it, but I'll be speaking tonight, 6 o'clock. And then tomorrow at the same venue, there will be a luncheon. So tonight at 6, and then tomorrow, the same venue, there will be a luncheon. If you need any information about that event or the others that will comprise the final 10 days of my second annual historic tour of South Africa, then you can simply call Mother Ima at 072-872-5778. Again, my brothers and sisters in Southern Africa, you can call Mother Ima at 072-872-5778 if you need information on that. I'll be back in the States November the 1st. I'm hoping that Birth of a Nation will still be playing. So my Philadelphia family, if you can let me know if Birth of a Nation will still be playing in any of the Philadelphia theaters on November the 1st. There's a chance I can get back on the night of the 31st. So even if there's anything on the night of the 31st. Also, my Virginia family, my Petersburg, Virginia, St. Petersburg, Virginia, my Virginia State family, I will see you guys on Thursday, November the 3rd. So let me know if Birth of a Nation is still playing down there. I'll probably be arriving the night before on the 2nd. So Birth of a Nation is playing anywhere in that part of Virginia. It would be powerful to see it in Virginia because that's where the Nat Turner War began. My birthday, August 21st. So I might just see it in Virginia just to get that Virginia energy. You know what I mean? So please let me know. And if I don't get a chance to see it in Philly or Virginia, my Orlando, Florida family, maybe you can let me know if Birth of a Nation is playing in Orlando, Florida, where I'll be speaking at on Saturday, November the 5th. I'll probably get down on the 4th. Shout out to Trayvon Martin. Rest in peace to you. Peace to his family. Had an opportunity to speak with his father several weeks ago. I was supposed to speak at an event hosted by the Trayvon Martin family, but my schedule didn't allow for that. But shout out to them because, as you guys know, Sanford is a little suburb or township next to Orlando. So looking forward to coming back to Orlando. Looking forward to my first visit at Virginia State. Looking forward to getting back to Memphis, University of Memphis. Okay, I'll be there on the 19th for the Men of Color Conference, University of Memphis, so that's going to be powerful. We have Queens, New York on the 11th of December, Queens, New York, the 11th of December. We also have North Jersey. Why am I forgetting the name of my city in North Jersey? Elizabeth, New Jersey on Saturday, December the 10th. Okay, still trying to find a venue in Atlanta, still trying to find a venue in Detroit so I can go ahead and do this Kwanzaa thing. Indianapolis, I'ma holler at you. Okay, Los Angeles, I'ma holler at you soon as well. So Columbus, Georgia, November the 22nd. Columbus, Georgia, November the 22nd. Don't want to leave out Columbus, Georgia. Also don't want to leave out the Turks and Caicos Island. Turks and Caicos Island, I'll be there from the 14th to the 17th. Okay, looking forward to that. Cincinnati, no doubt. I'm going to holler at Cincinnati soon. In fact, Cincinnati often gives me my largest audiences. So Cincinnati is a Dr. Umar sleeper town. A lot of Dr. Umar love in Cincinnati. So today what I want to do is I'm going to talk about standardized testing, standardized test scores. As you guys know, I'm a school psychologist. Okay, my whole life is tests. That's all I give is tests, 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 and more tests, right? IQ tests, achievement tests, emotional tests, psychological tests, adaptive behavior tests, visual motor tests, okay? I'm a tester. That's what the school psychologist does. Test, 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 test. And some of you need to think about becoming school psychologists because we don't have enough. Only 1% of all school psychologists are of African descent. Okay, so we need more black school psychologists. So if you're interested, you can holler at Dr. Umar Johnson. Okay, Kansas City, I'm looking for a venue, Kansas City. I'm trying to get back to Kansas City, but I ain't found nothing either. So I've been working on Kansas, I've been working on Detroit, I've been working on Atlanta, trying to find something that can fit. Shout out to the Shrine of the Black Madonna. They always show me love and give me a place to be. I was just trying to find something a little larger since the crowd can never totally fit up in there, but definitely Shrine of the Black Madonna is family for Dr. Umar. Now, when you deal with standardized testing, you have to deal with a white racist by the name of Francis Galton. Francis Galton. You need to do your research on Francis Galton, Galton. He was a cousin to Charles Darwin, who was another racist, okay, who invented the theory of evolution that said we came from apes and monkeys, which absolutely is not true for us. May be true for other races, but it's not true for us, especially when you look at the way they treat African people. They probably did evolve from a beast. But Francis Galton on January the 1st of 1900, Francis Galton on January the 1st of 1900 put forth a theory of eugenics. He'd been working on it for some time, but he kind of really introduced his theory of eugenics on January the 1st of 1900. And basically what he said was that intelligence is inherited. Intelligence is inherited. And if you want to read his book, it's called Hereditary Genius. Okay, excuse me, Hereditary Genius. That's the book, Hereditary Genius, Francis Galton. Okay, and in this book, he basically said that white people are superior to all other races. They are the most modern man. The black man is the most ancient man, and therefore the most unintelligent man. That we were somehow half monkey, half human, so our brains really didn't develop correctly. So he's the one who said intelligence was inherited. Okay, that you get your intelligence from your ancestry, and that intelligence is largely clustered around your racial category. Okay, so not only is intelligence inherited, it is clustered around your racial category. Okay, so white people are naturally going to be smarter because they're white, and black people are naturally going to be the least intelligent because we're African. Now, obviously, if you say that intelligence is inherited and that there's different levels of intelligence based on race, and keep in mind the theory of eugenics was all about systematic extermination of blacks because we were unintelligent. So the theory of eugenics, and the word, by the way, means good stock, says that we should selectively exterminate Africans and selectively breed white people. In other words, since white people are so smart, we need more white people and less black people. But the threat of the African, from their distorted white racist inaccurate perspective, the threat of the African is that we could contaminate the European gene pool, okay, by reproducing with them. In other words, a black man having a child with a white woman will bring down the average intelligence of white people. Okay, it would bring it down just by admixture. So naturally, if you're saying that intelligence is racially inherited and you want to scientifically, because white people don't have science, they have propaganda disguised as science. Okay, again, white people don't have science, they have propaganda disguised as science. So if you want to quote unquote pseudoscientifically justify the extermination of blacks and prove that your theory is not based on racist ideology but scientific proof, you naturally need to come up with a test, right? So Francis Galton never came up with an IQ test, but a Frenchman by the name of Alfred Binet in 1905 came up with the world's first intelligence test. It came from France. And you guys know how racist France is, okay? 1905, the French still had African colonies. So you can imagine what Alfred Binet thought about black people. So in 1910, a New Jersey racist by the name of Henry H. Goddard got a copy. I think he went to France and met with Binet and got the Alfred Binet IQ test, brought it back to America, and sent copies of this test all across the United States. Okay, this is 1910, so that it could be used as a tool in the war against black people. Okay, it was also used as a tool between elite whites and lower class whites. Okay, but we're not going to deal with that because even the lower class whites enjoys a privilege and advantage over upper class blacks. See, racism is not classism. Racism is not classism. Under racism, the poorest, dumbest white person still has a privilege and advantage over the richest, most educated black person. So we need to be clear on that because we got socialists and integrationists out here who are trying to argue that the issue is about class, that it's not about racism. It's about racism because guess what? Classism is about ownership of wealth. Black people don't own much, okay? We don't own much. We just make a lot of money and then waste it on garbage. So anyhow, so you had you had Francis Galton, then you had Henry Goddard, okay? And so then World War II, during World War II, 1916, that's when America really began to implement standardized testing in a uniform institutional way. They used the IQ test to determine which soldiers would be forced to fight on the front lines and which soldiers could stay back. So they basically put a value on your life based on this IQ test. So a lot of eugenicists and racists said, well, hey, we can use this to control black folks. Instead of saying it's because of racism, we can just say, hey, these people are inferior to Africans. And that's exactly what they did. 38 United States prevented you from getting married. 38 United States prevented you from having children if your IQ score was not at a certain level. Okay, they also sterilized black people based on IQ scores. Adolf Hitler, Nazi Germany, he used IQ scores to justify the extermination of European Jews. In fact, when they finally invaded the offices of the concentration camps, nearly every exterminated Jew had an IQ test within their folder. So IQ tests and all testing are weapons of mass destruction. But what I want you guys to understand is that the IQ test was really the first serious test in the United States. The IQ test was the first major or the first serious test in the United States of America. So let me fast forward. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit and then I'm gonna go back and forward. Former President George W. Bush, another white racist, okay, George W. Bush, when he created the No Child Left Behind Act, well, he actually didn't create it. Presidents don't create nothing, they just sign. So when he signed the NCLB in 2000, No Child Left Behind Act, he put standardized testing on steroids. He put it on steroids. He said, listen, okay, you can't be promoted if you don't pass it. In many states, you can't graduate if you don't pass it. And by the way, at least half of the states in America have a mandatory graduation exam, okay? 25 states have a mandatory graduation exam, which, by the way, is nothing more than we want all black boys to go to jail test. That's all it is. Because if a black boy or girl does well in school and they get straight A's and they pass the test and they get A's on their report card and they fail the state graduation test, what is that telling you? Let's look at this now. The child, straight A's and B's, passes every test, every class, on a roll from kindergarten through 12th, and then they fail the graduation test. What did that just tell you? That just tells you that the education that they received was inferior. If I'm doing perfectly in school and I fail your graduation test, then that means the education that I received in school was not adequate. But instead of punishing the teacher or the school or the district, you punish the child. Okay, so No Child Left Behind made everybody paranoid because they said, listen, if you don't score high enough or if you don't make annual yearly progress, because every school is measured every year on the progress that they make based on these standardized test scores. And they look at other things too, but test scores are very central to No Child Left Behind. And so they said, if the kids don't score well, guess what? You're going to lose funding. So that's what gave birth to all the teacher scandals, teachers cheating, changing grades. And let me be honest, it's not the teachers who are cheating on their own, not most of the time. It's the school administrators. It's the principals who influence the teachers to change the scores, and it's school districts. And I know this for a fact. School districts influence principals to influence teachers to change the grades, or if they can, try to help a child, with the test. Because you have to remember now, nobody's there when those tests are dropped off at the state office, or nobody is there when those tests are dropped off at the school district's office. So speaking as a former principal, if you are unscrupulous, no question, you can manipulate the scores. All you have to do is go in and look at where the kids didn't fill in, and you can answer all the questions that the child didn't answer, and nobody would know that the child didn't answer it. So it's all kind of ways of cheating. But a lot of black teachers have been blackballed and sabotaged and blamed for cheating when they were forced to do it or made to do it, what had nothing to do with it. Like the Atlanta teacher scandal, that was pure nonsense. That was district driven. Teachers don't really have to, in many places, teachers don't really have to change test scores, because teachers aren't going to lose their job anyway in many places. Teachers have the greatest job stability in America, like because of the power of the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. It is almost impossible for a teacher to get fired. So why do I need to change tests? I'm not going to lose my job anyway. Okay, I actually work in a profession as a teacher where you don't lose your job because you can't do it. In fact, teaching is the only profession in America where you don't lose your job even when everybody knows you can't teach. So now, let's get to why I have issues with standardized testing and why you should have issues with standardized testing, especially these achievement tests, okay? I want parents to understand something. You can lie with numbers based on how you decide to show the test results. In other words, your child is failing math in the 5th grade. If I use a criterion reference test, it will clearly show that your child is failing 5th grade math, right? Criterion reference means what? We're evaluating the child based on what they should have learned. Criterion reference test, we're evaluating the child based on what they should have learned, okay? So your child hasn't mastered 5th grade math, okay? Using the criterion reference test, we'll be able to show that your child is way below in math. But if I used a norm reference test, your same child who is failing 5th grade math, when we look at the criteria, can actually end up looking like they're at the top of the class. Why? Because of all the kids failed the class, but your child got the highest score. All the children failed the test, but your child got the highest test score. And if I do it based on norm, because a norm reference assessment evaluates the child's progress compared to the other kids in the grade, the school, the state, okay, or even the nation. But norm reference looks at how they do compared to other kids. So if all the kids in your school district failed that math test for 5th graders, but your child had the highest passing score, your child, using a norm reference assessment, can look like they're at the top, they're at the 95th percentile for math. And you say, wow, my baby is doing great. She was at the top of the 5th graders in her city. But that's because they used a norm reference test. They only compared the child to other children. I'm not even talking about the curve yet. The curve I'm going to talk about in a minute. I'm just talking about a norm reference assessment where you score the kids, not on the curve yet, okay, but you simply score them on a norm. So you look at who did the best, who did less well. Bell curve is a little bit different. I'm going to talk about that in a second, okay, but using a norm reference test, you're basically going to what? Create a hierarchy of test scores. It's not based on how well they did compared to the criteria. You're just going to create a hierarchy of test scores. And so your child might have failed with a 69. The next kid fell with a 65. The next kid fell with a 40. The next kid fell with a 30. But because your kid had the highest, they will be at the 95th percentile for math. And you will never even know that they're failing because the school used a norm referenced assessment. This is why black parents, you have to be very, very clear on what type of assessment. How did y'all score the children? Did y'all score them based on the 5th grade criteria, or did y'all score them on a norm referenced assessment, which basically looks at how well my child did with the other kids? I don't mind knowing how well my child did compared to other children. That's good information. But I'm more concerned about how well my child did compared to the information she should have mastered. Okay, what should my daughter have known at this point in 5th grade? What is the curriculum she should have mattered? what is the curriculum that she should have mastered, and how well did she do when compared to the curriculum that she should have mastered? How well did she do when compared to the curriculum that she should have mastered? The fact that she did better than the other kids in the district doesn't mean nothing if the district is an underachieving district. Let me say this again, parents. It doesn't matter how well my daughter did compared to the other children in the district if the district is a underachieving district. If your child is at the 95th percentile for all fifth graders in your district, and all fifth graders in your district are 3 grades below, her 95th percentile means nothing because she can still be failing. So I want to see criterion reference, where she should be, and I want to see norm reference, where she is compared to other children. Does everybody understand that? Okay? Norm reference versus criteria reference, okay? Now the bell curve. The bell curve is also a very misleading assessment. The bell curve is also a very misleading assessment. The bell curve says we're going to take all the scores from all the children who took this test, and we're going to distribute the scores along a bell curve. I want y'all to stay with me. We're going to take all the scores. And some of you guys remember a very famous book that came out in the 1990s known as The Bell Curve, written by 2 racist eugenics Harvard professors. That wouldn't be a bad idea to read that book, because in that book, they basically go back to, Francis Galton's belief that intelligence is racially inherited. In their whole book, The Bell Curve talks about how black children are intellectually inferior and have to be given a different type of an education. If you ain't read Bell Curve, you need to read Bell Curve. Okay, that's the modern version of Galton's Hereditary Genius. And do you know that Bell Curve was an international bestseller? Let me say that again. Bell Curve, published in the 1990s by 2 Harvard professors, was an international bestseller, a book that argued that intelligence was racially inherited, and that argued that black children were intellectually inferior to white children and just about everybody else. It argued for special education. It argued for all this it argued for so-called learning disability. Everything we put our kids through, we don't even realize what we're doing. All we're doing is upholding and reinforcing, okay, pre-emancipation beliefs that white people have about black intelligence, okay? So now, with the bell curve, let's say 10 kids took a test, okay? 10 black kids took a test. And we're going to score them on a bell curve, which means we're going to distribute the scores, okay, equally on a bell. So you see the bell curve, right? So if you look at a bell curve, you split it in half, okay? That midway point where you split the bell curve in half, that's the what? That's the 50th percentile. That's in the middle, right? That's the 50th percentile. So in a bell curve, 50% of the kids will be above the 50th percentile, 50% of the kids will be below the 50th percentile, and it doesn't matter how well they did or did not do. Let me say this again. The bell curve is very misleading. The bell curve is very misleading because you distribute the scores along a bell, so a kid who did great might not look so great, and a kid who did poor might look great, because a bell curve says 50% are going to be above, 50% is going to be below. So you evenly distribute these scores, okay? So the bell curve, I would say, is a type of normative assessment. Okay, it is a type of normative assessment because you're still comparing the kids with the other kids, but you're going to distribute them along the bell, which means you can really distort the scores. Let me give you an example. Every kid got an A. 10 kids. One of them got 100, one got a 99, a 98, a 97, a 96, a 95, a 94, a 93, a 92, a 91, right? So 10 kids, they all got 100 down to 91. So they should be clustered like this, right? No, because we're grading them on the bell curve. So guess what? We got to spread them out evenly on this curve. So the kid who got the 100, they are all at the top. They at the highest percentile. Okay, they're at the top 1%. Then the kid who got the 99, only 1 point lower. Only 1 point lower. The kid who got the 99 is only 1 point lower. Okay, but because he's 1 point lower, instead of being at the first percentile, okay, or should I say the kid who scored 100, let's say he's at the 100th percentile, okay, and then the kid who scored the 99, he might be at the 85th percentile And the kid who scored the 98 might be at the 70th percentile. And the kid who scored the 97 might be at the 60th percentile. And the kid who scored the 96, okay, would be at the 50th percentile. And the kid who scored the 95 might be at the 40th percentile. So when you look at the bell curve, you say, my kid is in the middle. I thought my kid was a top kid. But he is. All these kids scored within 1 point of each other. All of these children scored, okay, within 1 point of each other. But because the bell curve distributes the scores out, it looks like your kid did less well than the others because we spread them out. You understand? So the bell curve speaks to the distribution of scores along a curve, so you spread them out. So the kid at the bottom, be like, my kid is dumb. My kid is always at the bottom. He's at the first percentile. Is he retarded? Your kid got a 91. He's only 1 point shy of this one, and 2 points shy of this one, and 3 points shy of this one. He got a 91. But because we use a bell curve, which means we evenly distribute the scores on that curve, your kid looked like he didn't do well when he did. Okay? Now, somebody just mentioned about the kids who are in the top 20 percentile on that test, okay, automatically pass. Well, that speaks to grading. Okay, I'm not speaking to grading. I'm just looking at the pseudoscientific usage of the bell curve. But you're absolutely right. The kids who score in the first 20 percentile will get an A. Kids who score in the next percentile will get a B. Kids who score in the next quadrant will get a C. Kid with a 92 can end up getting a D if you grade along a bell curve. And the kid with the 91, an A, can end up getting an F because he had the lowest score, even though the scores was this close. This is why parents you need to know when you get your child's tests, you need to ask these kinds of questions when you get your child's tests, okay? Is this a normative assessment? Okay? Is this a criterion referenced assessment? If it's standardized, what was the standard group? What was the standard group for this test? You should know that. They might tell you what a standard group for this test was middle-class white kids in Los Angeles. Well, my kid ain't middle class, my kid ain't white, they don't live in Los Angeles. Why y'all giving this test all the way over on the East Coast? Well, they might tell you that, you know, the standard for this group was middle class white kids in Cincinnati. But my kid ain't middle class, he ain't white, and he live in Florida. Why y'all using tests that were standardized on kids from another state, another class, on my kids? You know why? Because it's about money. School districts are looking for cheap tests. School districts are also looking for tests that are going to give them a good look, give the appearance that the children are failing, even when they're not. Excuse me, look like, well, yes, to look like children are failing even when they're not, or to look like kids are passing even when they're not. Okay, so testing is a very, very corrupt thing. I'm gonna say the standardized testing is a corrupt game. It's about money. It's about manipulation. It's about finding a test company that's going to present your district in the light that you want them. Charter schools do this. Charter schools even have more freedom to do this. Okay, you're going to look for people who give you a test that's going to make my kids, you know, look like they're doing okay. I don't need no test that's going to make it look like they're not learning. But see, here's the problem with standardized testing. The problem with standardized testing is that we don't have a national curriculum. Y'all listening to me, brothers and sisters? We do not have a national curriculum in America. Let me take that back. I'm not an American. They don't have a national curriculum in America. They don't have a national curriculum in America. So since there is no nationally standardized curriculum in America, how can you use a test made by one company to measure all the children? In California, y'all don't use standardized tests, but the racism operates differently. I might have to do a separate video on California, okay? Because it's, in fact, it makes it easier to put the kids in special ed because there's no test. So California, y'all got to be very careful. It's true that they did away with standardized testing in California because California is the most culturally diverse state in America. But to be honest with you, it's a pro and a con, because they can put your kids in special ed without even testing. In other words, your kid can be diagnosed as retarded and not even be retarded because they didn't have to use a test at all. So California is a special case. We'll have to deal with that, okay? The next National Independent Black Parent Association Conference will be in California. We're looking at Oakland, January 26th to the 29th. So California, y'all need to be there. In fact, I'm gonna probably do a special training just on California and how assessments work and do not work in California. But I'm hoping all you brothers and sisters who are watching this tutorial, Black Parent Tutorial. I hope you guys are going to join us in Oakland, California on Friday and Saturday, January 27th and 28th. Oaktown, California, Prince of Pan-Africanism. LA, holla at me. Sacramento, I should be coming to Sacramento soon. San Diego, I ain't forget about you. I'm going to holla at you too in San Diego. But, okay, I forgot where I was. I had an ADHD moment. But anyway, let me say this. Major issues. Okay, I know where I was. America doesn't have a nationally standardized curriculum. That means that when a test company makes a test, they want to sell it to every school district, right? And you got tens of thousands of school districts. Pennsylvania, we have 501 school districts alone. So you're talking about tens of thousands of school districts. You're a test company. You want to make money, right? Okay. So guess what? Okay, you want to try to sell that test to as many different school districts. Now, when you made your test, was it designed off of Philadelphia School District's curriculum? Was it designed off of Fort Lauderdale, Florida's curriculum? Was it designed off of Houston, Texas curriculum? When you made your test, was it designed off of Indianapolis? Okay, was it designed off of Kansas City? Okay, was it designed off of Brooklyn? No, no. When you made your test, it did not take into account the unique curriculum of the different school districts who are going to buy that test and use it on your child. So what are you saying, Dr. Umar Johnson? You want to know what I'm saying? I'm saying that your child is taking a test that has nothing to do with what he was taught in class. It might not even have anything to do with the curriculum that the school district has adopted. This is why testing is almost useless, because they're not measuring your district's curriculum. They're not measuring your state standards. They're not measuring the instruction that your child was given in the class. They're just measuring whatever the test company decided to put together and said, this measures this. And let me blow your mind with something else. Okay, fam, I got to wrap this up in 10 minutes because my rod is here. Okay. But and I'm going to probably have to finish this. There's something called, okay, what do we call it? Test reliability and validity. Test reliability and validity. Let me break it. Reliability says, if I give this same child this same test a couple months later, and the child has not received any significant instruction between the test that I gave November the 1st and the same test I gave him January the 1st, the same child takes the same test twice. Reliability says the score should be the same. Guess what? A lot of these tests are not reliable. Every time the child takes them, you get a different helter-skelter score. So the tests are not reliable, a lot of them. Number two, validity says, does the test measure what it's supposed to measure? Does the test measure what it's supposed to measure? And guess what? A lot of times it does not measure what it's supposed to measure. Now here's the question. Who from the United States Department of Education is testing the test? Who from your state Department of Education or your school curriculum is testing the test? Who is investigating these tests to make sure they are reliable and valid? The test company. Just like the drug companies do the testing on their drugs to make sure their drugs are safe, it is the test companies that do the validity and reliability testing for their own instruments. You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry. What test company you know is going to come back to you and tell you that we found out that our tests are not reliable and valid and lose billions of dollars in the process? The whole testing industry is corrupt. But then there's something else. This called inter-assessment reliability. Listen to this. Inter-assessment. That means if I give your child the Stanford Achievement Test, and then I give your child a National Achievement Test, and then I give your child the Pennsylvania Achievement Test for 5th graders. So they took the Stanford test out of California, they took the Pennsylvania test out of Pennsylvania, and then they took a national test. Your child took 3 tests. Your 5th grader took 3 different tests. They all claim to be measuring the same thing, right? But guess what? They scored in the top percentile on the Stanford. They scored in the 50th percentile on the Pennsylvania, and they flunked out on the national. How can the same child taking 3 different tests at the same time that claim to measure the same thing can do great on one, okay, average on the other, and fail on the other? Because these tests do not have strong inter-assessment reliability. The testing industry is corrupt. Okay, now, let me tell you how they get black kids. This is how they get black kids. Okay, 3 things I need black parents to zoom on. 3 things about why Dr. Umar argues that your child's test scores do not represent how much they've learned. Number one, our children are lazy as hell. I'm going to just put it out there. Y'all don't teach our kids discipline. A lot of you parents don't really teach them to honor education. Okay, so lazy ass kids taking a test, they're going to fail it even if they could have scored perfect. They don't have no motivation, no interest. They don't check their work. They don't read all the questions. I've seen kids just sit there and circle anything. So first of all, you have to look at the attitude towards testing. Black kids don't care about testing because they don't care, okay, about their education. In fact, I would argue that a black child's attitude, the attitude that they bring to the testing, represents anywhere from 25 to 75% of their test score. I'm going to say it again. If your child got a shitty attitude towards testing, their test score was impacted by their attitude from a percentage of 25 to 75% just by the fact that they don't even want to be there. The fact that they're not even trying. So we got to look at the black child's attitude. The black child's attitude, how they sabotage. Number two, item selection. Item selection. If you're testing how well the child has been taught or what they learn, why do you ask the question in such a confusing way? And then when you give the answers that they can choose from, you can make the answers clearly different from each other. So let's say there's three answers, because most tests are multiple choice. That's another problem I have with testing. So you give three answers, right? And if the child reads the three answers, they have to choose one. Are the answers clear to the child? And are they clearly different from each other? Or are you trying to manipulate failure by making the three answers so close that the kid is like, I don't know what this answer is saying, okay? I don't know what this answer is saying. I don't know. So the child ends up what? Guessing, because the vocabulary, my second issue, the vocabulary used to ask the questions is very confusing and misleading to the children. Why are you trying to manipulate them? Why are you making it so hard for them to understand the question and or the answers so they can get the stuff correctly? So item selection. Remember, family, there's over 1,000 math questions you can ask, but they only put 10 on the test. There's over 1,000 reading comprehension questions you can ask. They only put 10 on the test. There's 1,000 history questions you can ask. They only put 10 on the test. Who chose these 10? There's millions of questions. Who chose these? They chose the items that they knew from the pre-test showed black kids would do less well on than the white children. Because you know, when you create a test, when you go through standardization, you already test the items. Let me say this again. The test was already given before the official test was given. That's how you standardize. The only way you can standardize a test is to give the test. I participated in standardization. You give the test. And you don't give them colorblind. You say this was a poor black kid. This was a rich white kid. This is a working class Latino kid. This was a rich Latino Asian kid. You do it by race. This whole thing is racist. You do it by race. And then you study the items that the different races did well on, and you can construct a test that makes it look like black kids are retarded. You could also construct a test that make black kids look like they are intelligent. That's why we had a black psychologist who created a test called the Bitch 100. Do your research on the Bitch 100, the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity. The Bitch 100, the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity. Do your research on that. Do your research on that. This whole thing is a scam. This is why we need the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. Make your donations. GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar. Meloman. Okay, FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19132, North Philly, stand up. Susquehanna Avenue, stand up. Allegheny, stand up. Shout out to Meek Millie, stand up. Gilly the Kid, stand up. Okay, but getting back to the point, okay, the items, the vocabulary, okay, your child's attitude. And then the fourth one is how they score the tests. These tests are often scored by people who are given a template and they have to score them. And guess what? Those people can make mistakes. These tests are not always computer scored. And even when they are computer scored, the computers can make errors. Yes, they don't tell you about that. How they find out 10 years later that we accidentally gave you the wrong scores. We accidentally scored this. This is not an infallible process. God does not score these tests, brothers and sisters. God does not score these tests. Okay? The point of the story is, as I wrap this up, okay, you cannot reduce a child's education to a score. You cannot reduce a child's education to a score. Now, here's one other thing I want to get y'all with. This is the last thing, and then I'm going to get ready to get on up out of here. South Africa, stand up. Kenya, stand up. But let me say this. Hold on. Dr. Umar Johnson. Sure. I got a phone call. I don't know who it is. Yes. In fact, my rod said they would be here in 10 minutes, and I'm coming down now. Yes, sir. Okay, then you know what? Come on up to room 7 in 5 minutes. I'm about to finish this video. Give me 5 minutes. All right, no doubt, my pop. So, there was my good roster brother Sean. They downstairs to get me. But this is the last thing I wanted to say, family. I don't like the all or nothing way that answers are scored. In other words, your child got it all right or you got it all wrong. Y'all understand where I'm coming from? The child gets it all right or they got it all wrong. Let's say your daughter sat down and worked out the math problem, or they sat down and worked out the science problem, and 75% or 80% or 90% of your daughter's formulation of her answer was correct, but she made a small little error at the end. She made a small little error at the end, or she made a small little error at the beginning, and because of that small little error, she ends up getting the whole question wrong compared to a kid who just guessed and got it right. He didn't know the answer either. He just guessed. He don't know how he got there. He just guessed. But your daughter, who knew what she was doing, made a small little error, and as a result of that error, okay, she got them all wrong. I think these standardized test scores should not use an all or nothing formula. They should be scored based on percentage. That's right. If you got 80% of the question right, then you should get 80% on that item. If you got 90% of the question right, you should get 90% on that item. If you got 50% of the question right, you should get 50% on that item. What I'm saying is your child could have got 90% correct on every item, but because the final answer was wrong, he failed when he was actually brighter than everyone else in the classroom, in the district, or in the nation on that particular subset of items. So for me, all or nothing testing, all or nothing scoring significantly distorts your ability to assess the true skill level, achievement level, or aptitude level of black children. And the last thing I'm gonna say, okay, is none of these tests have any predictive value. And I'm gonna end it on that. What is the relationship between your child's aptitude test, IQ test, achievement test, and their ability to finish school, get into college, make it at a special high school, become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a psychologist? What is the relationship between a test score and your child's ability to achieve? It's a 0. Do your research. It's a 0. These tests have no predictive validity. The IQ test, no predictive validity. The achievement test, no predictive validity. The aptitude test, no predictive validity. So why do they give tests? Because it's a very scientific, false scientific way of making it look like black children are inferior. Why do they give the test? It is a very false scientific way, a pseudo-scientific way of making the black children look like they are inferior. That's why they give the test. Standardized testing is the new Jim Crow score. Standardized testing is the new Jim Crow score. If you want to keep black kids out, you don't have to put up a colored only sign. Put up a 1600 only sign. Put up a 90 percentile only sign. Put up a certain score that you know the African children are not going to achieve beyond because of the way you manipulated the test and the way you gathered the information during standardization, and you can keep black kids out. The only reason why America tests our children to death is it looks like a scientific, unbiased way of limiting their access to opportunity.